All right, let's dive into a topic you might think you know: smog. But trust me, there's more to this hazy subject than meets the eye. We've got excerpts from the Wikipedia article on smog, and we're going to unearth some surprising facts.
What's fascinating is how smog intertwines with human activity, almost like a reflection of our choices and consequences.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the basics. We all know smog is that visible air pollution.
Right. A mix of smoke and fog.
Yeah, but the Wikipedia article points out there are different types: summer smog and winter smog.
Right. It's not just one thing. In the summer, it's photochemical smog triggered by reactions with sunlight.
Oh, okay.
Think bustling cities, traffic jams, and those hazy days.
Gotcha.
Then there's winter smog,
Okay.
a product of coal burning and stagnant air. More common in colder regions reliant on coal for heat.
So different seasons, different smog recipes, but both equally unpleasant, I imagine. Speaking of unpleasant, the Wikipedia article mentioned pea supers, the nickname for London's smog. It makes it sound almost quaint, but I have a feeling it was anything but.
You're right. It's hard to imagine a city so choked with smog
Yeah.
that people couldn't see their hands in front of their faces.
Wow.
That's the reality Londoners faced for centuries, thanks largely to their reliance on coal.
It almost sounds like something out of a dystopian novel.
It does, doesn't it?
What was life really like during those times?
The Wikipedia article paints a pretty grim picture. Imagine a thick yellowish-black fog blanketing the city, seeping into homes and making it difficult to breathe. It was a constant health hazard.
Oh, wow.
And then there was the Great Smog of 1952,
Yeah.
a particularly severe event that tragically led to thousands of deaths
Oh, my
and
God.
triggered major air quality reforms.
That's a stark reminder of how serious this issue can be.
Absolutely.
So while London might be the poster child for smog,
Right.
I'm guessing it's not the only place struggling with this problem.
Sadly, no smog is a global issue. And to understand its reach, let's take a journey, starting with what the Wikipedia article highlights as one of the most polluted cities on Earth: Delhi, India.
Delhi, huh? What's driving their smog crisis?
It's a complex cocktail of factors. Vehicular emissions, industrial activity, and even crop burning in neighboring regions all contribute. And the city's location in a basin doesn't help, as it traps pollutants, creating a thick smog layer.
Oh, wow.
In fact, the Wikipedia article cites a study that found Delhi's air pollution reduces life expectancy by an average of 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah,
That's a staggering statistic.
it is. It highlights the very real and very human cost of smog. But Delhi isn't alone. Let's shift our focus to Southeast Asia, where vast stretches of land are often blanketed by dense haze, impacting millions across multiple countries.
I've seen images of that haze. It's almost apocalyptic what's causing it.
Land and forest fires are the primary culprit, often started for agricultural purposes or land clearing. This smoke combines with existing pollution to create a regional haze that disrupts air travel, impacts public health, and even crosses international borders, creating diplomatic tensions.
So it's not just a health issue, it's an economic and political one, too.
Exactly. Now let's jump across the Pacific to North America. Los Angeles, California is infamous for its smog, often pictured with a hazy skyline.
That's right. I always associate LA with sunshine and beaches, but I guess smog is part of the package deal, too. Why is LA so prone to this problem?
Well, it's a combination of factors. The city's location in a basin surrounded by mountains creates a perfect trap for pollutants, especially with its heavy reliance on cars. And ironically, the very sunshine that makes LA so attractive also plays a role in forming photochemical smog.
So the sunshine, the cars, the geography, it's like a recipe for smog.
Indeed. And speaking of recipes, let's break down the science behind how smog actually forms, starting with winter smog.
Okay, so winter smog, as we mentioned, is often associated with coal burning. But how does that translate into that thick, hazy air?
It starts with the burning of coal for heating during the colder months. This releases pollutants like sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter into the air. Now, particulate matter is basically a fancy term for tiny particles
Okay,
of soot, dust, and other substances.
so those tiny particles, along with those gases, are what make up smog.
Exactly. And in the winter, when the air is cold and dense, it tends to stay close to the ground. If there's not much wind to disperse these pollutants, they accumulate, forming that thick, smoky haze we call winter smog.
That explains why those London pea supers were so dense. But what about summer smog? How is that different?
Summer smog, or photochemical smog, is a bit more complex. Remember how we talked about sunlight playing a role? Well, in this case, sunlight reacts with nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds, which are chemicals released from sources like car exhaust and industrial emissions.
Wait, so volatile organic compounds, what are those exactly?
They're a large group of chemicals that easily evaporate into the air. Think paint fumes, gasoline vapors, even natural scents from trees. While some are harmless, others can react with nitrogen oxides in the presence of sunlight to form ground-level ozone, a key component of smog. And that's where the trouble begins.
So it's not just the sunshine, it's these chemical reactions that create this harmful ozone.
Precisely. And places like Los Angeles, with lots of sunshine and traffic, are particularly susceptible to this type of smog. It's a fascinating, albeit concerning, interplay of chemistry and environmental factors.
Okay, so we've got two types of smog with different ingredients, but both sound equally bad for our lungs.
You're right to be concerned.
Yeah.
Because smog isn't just an aesthetic problem.
Right.
It poses significant risks to human health.
I know air pollution is bad for us, but how bad are we talking here?
Those tiny particles we talked about. The particulate matter can penetrate deep into your lungs, causing irritation and inflammation. And long-term exposure to smog has been linked to a whole host of health issues.
Oh.
From respiratory problems like asthma and bronchitis,
Yeah.
to more serious conditions like heart disease, stroke, and even some types of cancer.
The health consequences are far more serious than many people realize.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the immediate impact on your lungs. Studies have shown that smog can even affect cognitive function and increase the risk of developing neurological disorders like Alzheimer's disease.
Wow, I had no idea. The impact was so wide-ranging. It makes you wonder how we can even begin to tackle this issue.
That's a great question, and one we'll explore further. But before we dive into solutions, let's take a closer look at some specific examples of how smog has impacted different cities around the world.
Sounds like a plan. I'm ready for the next leg of our smog journey.
Welcome back to our smog deep dive.
We've seen how smog affects different parts of the world.
Right?
But now I'm curious to dig deeper into some specific cases. We touched on London's history with smog,
Yeah.
but the Wikipedia article suggests it goes way beyond those infamous pea supers.
Absolutely. London's struggle with smog is deeply intertwined with its history and cultural identity. Remember those novels by Charles Dickens?
Oh, yeah.
With their descriptions of a fog-choked London?
Yeah,
Well, that wasn't just literary license.
right.
For centuries, London was known as the Smoke. Its skyline often obscured by a thick layer of coal smoke and fog.
So it wasn't just an occasional nuisance, it was a defining feature of the city.
Precisely. And that constant exposure to smog had a profound impact on the health of Londoners. The Wikipedia article mentions that respiratory illnesses were rampant, and life expectancy was significantly lower for those living in the most polluted areas.
It's a stark reminder that smog isn't just an abstract environmental problem.
Right.
It has very real consequences for people's lives.
Exactly. And while London has made significant progress in cleaning up its air,
Yeah.
its experience serves as a cautionary tale for other cities facing similar challenges.
Speaking of other cities, let's revisit Los Angeles.
Okay.
We talked about how its geography and car culture contribute to its smog problem. But the Wikipedia article suggests LA's relationship with smog is particularly complex.
Los Angeles was once so synonymous with smog that the two terms were almost interchangeable. The city's rapid growth in the mid-20th century, fueled by the automobile industry,
Right.
led to a dramatic increase in car emissions,
Wow.
creating what was essentially a perfect storm for smog formation.
So it's not just about the geography, it's also about the choices we make, how we live, how we commute, what we prioritize.
Absolutely. And LA's experience highlights another fascinating aspect of smog: its impact on culture.
Now, that's not something I would have immediately associated with smog.
Right.
How has it influenced culture?
Think about it. When a city is perpetually shrouded in haze, it affects everything from daily life to artistic expression. For example, the Wikipedia article mentions how smog has been depicted in numerous films and television shows set in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
often serving as a visual shorthand for urban decay or environmental crisis.
So smog becomes more than just a weather phenomenon.
Right.
It becomes a symbol, a metaphor.
Exactly. And it's not just visual media.
Yeah.
Smog has found its way into music literature and even fashion. There are songs about the brown cloud over LA,
Interesting.
novels that use smog as a plot device, and even clothing lines inspired by the hazy aesthetic.
It's amazing how something as seemingly mundane as smog can permeate our culture in such diverse ways.
It's a testament to how deeply environmental issues are intertwined with our lives, whether we realize it or not.
Speaking of environmental issues, let's shift our focus to a region facing some of the most severe smog challenges today. Southeast Asia.
Okay.
We touched on the haze caused by land and forest fires,
Right.
but the Wikipedia article paints a particularly alarming picture.
It is a concerning situation.
Right.
These fires often started to clear land for agriculture,
Yeah.
release massive amounts of smoke and particulate matter into the atmosphere, creating a haze that can blanket entire countries for weeks or even months.
I remember seeing news reports about how this haze disrupts air travel and closes schools, but what about the long-term impact?
The Wikipedia article cites studies that show this prolonged exposure to haze has significant health consequences, particularly for vulnerable populations like children and the elderly. It's linked to respiratory illnesses, cardiovascular problems, and even an increased risk of premature death.
It sounds like a public health emergency.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not just a health issue. It also has economic implications.
Right.
The haze disrupts tourism, reduces agricultural yields, and impacts overall productivity.
So it's a multifaceted crisis with far-reaching consequences.
Exactly. And it highlights the interconnectedness of environmental issues.
Yeah.
How something like land management practices in one country can have ripple effects across an entire region.
Okay. We've seen how smog has shaped London's identity, influenced LA's culture, and created a public health crisis in Southeast Asia. It's clear this is a global issue with complex causes and consequences.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I'd love to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the impact of smog on our health.
Sure.
Can you elaborate on that?
Of course. We've talked about respiratory problems.
Right.
But smog's impact goes far beyond that. Those tiny particles in smog, the particulate matter, can enter your bloodstream and travel throughout your body, affecting various organs and systems.
So it's not just about breathing difficulties, it's a systemic problem.
Precisely. And the health effects can be both immediate and long-term.
Okay.
Short-term exposure can trigger asthma attacks, worsen existing heart conditions, and cause eye irritation. But long-term exposure is where the real danger lies.
What kind of long-term health problems are we talking about?
Studies have linked prolonged exposure to smog to an increased risk of developing chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD,
Wow.
heart disease, stroke, lung cancer,
My goodness.
and even dementia.
Those are some serious health consequences.
They are. And it's important to remember that even seemingly low levels of smog can have an impact.
Right.
Especially for children, the elderly, and people with pre-existing health conditions.
So it's not just about those hazy days when the air is visibly polluted.
Right.
It's about the cumulative effect of exposure over time.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be aware of the risks, to monitor air quality, and to take steps to protect ourselves and our communities.
That's a great segue to our next segment, where we'll explore what's being done to combat smog and improve air quality around the world. So we've explored the science, the history, the health impacts of smog.
Right.
It's a pretty sobering picture,
Right.
but I'm holding on to hope.
Right.
Are there any success stories in the fight against smog? What's working?
There is good news.
Okay.
While smog remains a challenge, many cities and regions are making significant strides in improving air quality. Remember our deep dive into London's P supers? The Wikipedia article highlights the impact of the Clean Air Act of 1956. It enforced smokeless zones and phased out coal burning,
Okay.
leading to a dramatic reduction in smog.
So London went from being the smoke to having breathable air. That's a pretty incredible turnaround.
It is, and it shows that even cities with a long history of smog can turn things around with targeted policies and public support.
Right.
The Clean Air Act wasn't an overnight fix, but it laid the groundwork for decades of progress.
It's inspiring to see that change is possible. What about Los Angeles? They've been battling smog for decades, haven't they?
Yes, but they've also made impressive progress.
Okay.
The Wikipedia article points out that Los Angeles has implemented some of the strictest car emission standards in the world,
Wow.
resulting in a significant decrease in smog levels over the past few decades.
That's amazing.
It's a testament to how technological advancements and regulations can work together to improve air quality.
So from stricter emission standards to investing in public transportation,
Right.
it seems like there are many strategies at play. What about places like Delhi, where we saw some really alarming pollution levels?
Delhi faces a more complex challenge due to its rapid growth and diverse sources of pollution. But even there, we're seeing positive steps. The Wikipedia article mentions that Delhi is implementing measures to curb crop burning, a major contributor to winter smog. They're also promoting cleaner cooking fuels and investing in renewable energy sources. It's a work in progress. But these efforts are starting to show results.
It sounds like there's no one-size-fits-all solution,
Right.
but rather a combination of approaches tailored to each region's unique challenges.
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Addressing smog requires a multifaceted approach involving government regulations, technological innovation, and individual actions. It's about collaboration awareness and a commitment to change.
Okay, so what can we as individuals do to contribute to cleaner air? It can feel overwhelming to think about tackling a problem as big as smog.
I understand that feeling. But even small changes in our daily lives can collectively make a difference. Choosing to walk, cycle, or use public transportation instead of driving alone is a great start.
So being mindful of our transportation choices is key. What else can we do?
Being energy conscious at home and work can also have a big impact. Simple things like turning off lights when you leave a room, using energy-efficient appliances, and reducing your reliance on air conditioning can help reduce emissions from power plants.
Those are all doable changes. Are there any other individual actions we can take?
Absolutely. Supporting policies that promote clean energy and sustainable practices is crucial.
Okay.
Vote for candidates who prioritize environmental protection. Advocate for cleaner air standards. And consider investing in renewable energy sources like solar power.
It's a reminder that our choices as consumers and citizens can influence the bigger picture.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of education and awareness. Talk to your friends and family about smog.
Okay.
Share what you've learned from this deep dive and encourage them to make changes in their own lives.
It's about spreading the word and inspiring collective action.
Precisely. And remember, every step towards cleaner air, no matter how small, contributes to a healthier future for ourselves and our planet.
This deep dive into smog has been a real eye-opener. We've explored the science, the history, the impact on our health, and the efforts being made to combat it. It's a complex issue, but it's clear that there's hope.
I agree. It's been a fascinating journey, and I'm encouraged by the progress being made around the world. From London's Clean Air Act to Los Angeles' emission standards and Delhi's efforts to curb crop burning, we're seeing the power of human ingenuity and determination to address this challenge.
It's a reminder that we're not just passengers on this planet, we're the drivers. And the choices we make today will determine the quality of the air we breathe tomorrow.
That's a powerful thought to leave with our listeners.
Indeed. So, to our listeners, we hope this deep dive into smog has sparked your curiosity, deepened your understanding, and maybe even inspired you to take action.
Remember, every step towards cleaner air counts. Let's all do our part to create a brighter, healthier future, free from the haze of smog.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into smog. We'll catch you on our next deep dive into another fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged in creating a better world.